So after about 184 videos I've done now, which is a bit crazy, it's actually never occurred to me to do a top 5 top Chessable courses, and these are all my courses, and I'm going to go through the top 5 in order of what I think's my own personal favourite and also the most useful for people. So before I do that, I just want to thank everybody who has purchased my courses in the past, and thank Chessable for allowing the community authors, amateurs like me, to sort of produce stuff. So let's have a look at my top 5. 5 would be my early course, Nightfall Trainer. So I was really frustrated by, as an adult improver and getting, stung with Nightfalks in time control situations, especially, and things like that. So I wanted to do something where I could actually, go about training that. And there was nothing out there. So I created my own course. I was able to train Nightfolks. And Nightfall Trainer starts you off simple, and in all positions you start off in check. So you're white in this first position, you're in check, and what you've got to do is find the move that doesn't land you in a Nightfolk. Right, so in this position you want to be playing king to g2 to avoid the Nightfolks. Right, so they start off like that and they get more and more complicated. Let me show you one from a little bit later in the course. This is position 11, so if you're having a quick look at this. So, you're white king in all positions and you're in check. You have to avoid the Nightfolks. This one's a bit more complicated on the surface. It's simple, but there are other things in the position. And all of these positions, I have taken and modified, and I've actually sort of structured them myself. So they're all they're not taken from real games. They're all sort of created in order to sort of train against Nightfolks in increasingly sort of difficult positions and scenarios. So let's have a look at this one then. So the correct answer in this one was to move the king to c2. Now that seems pretty obvious because you're guarding the bishop, but there's also counter ideas. For example, after knight c5 check, discovered check, there is king d2, for example, and if knight takes, then white has this pawn capture, winning the bishop. So the little things like that thrown in, a bit more complexity as you go on. So that's number 5. So number 4 will be Paul Morphy, 25 games to Memorise. So this one is a very cheap course. It's like $4.99 or something like crazy. I don't make any money on it, but I enjoy the course. I enjoy Paul Morphy. And what I did to create this course is I went through every single Paul Morphy game, twice over, which was just an absolute pleasure. I absolutely love Paul Morphy games. And the idea with this course is you have 25 games where you can sort of attempt, if you want, to memorise some or all of the games of Paul Morphy. So you have lightly annotated games that I've hand selected from, with games with like fewer moves leading up to games with more moves. But they're all under sort of 20 moves, around that, something like that. Anyway, I can't remember exactly. So let's have a look. Typical Paul Morphy game. And you can play through, and the Chessable system allows you to memorize the games and the patterns and the ideas. And this one really is just for a bit of fun, but at the same time, if you're memorizing some Paul Morphy games, then look at that, then it can't be bad for your sort of overall chess. That's what I think, really. So yeah, this one's 12 moves, and they sort of move up in order of difficulty, and this one is very dirt cheap, along with Nightfall Training, which is very cheap as well. So number 3 would be Blunderbusters. Blunderbusters was something like 2 years in the making. It was crazy. I spent so much time trying to find the right material and sort of adapt this. And my main pressure with playing over the board games was like trying to avoid tactics. I was good at getting the tactics, in my own games, like aggressive tactics, like I said on the Perpetual Chess podcast. My main, weakness as an amateur player as a 1800, and below that, building up to that, was like overlooking threats. So I went out there, tried to find material on avoiding threats, and there isn't virtually nothing out there. So I created Blunderbusters with that in mind. And, you start off with simpler moves. This is a simpler position. It's black to play in this position and to avoid mate, for example. So what you need to be doing in this position is, after that one, you get to see the opponent's move, is to play the king to block this check. There's lots and lots of analysis, right? I put so much work into this course with not much payoff, really, but I was happy to produce this course, Blunderbusters. That's there on Chessable. So before I get on to number 2, I just want to mention the Ben Johnson interview that I did, and also thank Ben Johnson for doing that. It was really, really enjoyable. And if you want to watch that, or listen to it, then you don't have to see my face, right? You can do that, and I'll put in the links in the description. So number two. So number two, this is something I mentioned quite a lot. We talk about in Ben Johnson's show, so I'm not going to go on out in length. But number two would be the Visualise series. Great! So the objective, if you do not know what Visualise series is about, then what? Surely you know Visualise series. Anyway, the Visualise series, it's all about identifying, the visualization element of chess training. So rather than having to visualize and calculate and look for candidate moves and find the tactics and find and dismiss patterns and things like that, you're just training the visualization element, right? So the idea is you're holding a position in your head, and then you're moving on a little bit further, hold that position again, move on again a little bit further, hold that position, and then you find, and usually it's a tactic at the end of the line. Okay, so here's an example of that take this from the free course, which is the 25 visualize exercises that I've done for free. Then I'm not spoiling anything in case anybody's, not done the actual course yet. Here is an example. I completely picked at random, and it's from Visualise 5. Like, I said it's totally random. And what you have to do is you look at the position and visualize the moves. I'll tell you what you need to visualize in this in case you want to do it. Visualize the moves. Bishop hits h6 check, king g6, g5, knight h5, and then find Capablanca's continuation. All right, so that's bishop h6 check, king g6, g5, knight h5. So what you do is you spend as much time on that as you want. Right, there's no timer in any of the courses, and you really slow down, and you really work on your visualization skills. So following that, then it's bishop h6 check, king g6, g5, knight h5, and then find Capablanca's continuation, which was queen f5 check. Queen takes, pawn takes, checkmate. Right, okay. So that's the Visualise series. The recommended study method I would do is Visualise 1, Visualise 3, Visualise 4 and 5, and then Visualise 2 at the end. Visualise 2 is the hardest of the courses. Okay, so let's look at what I put as number 1. So number 1, that leaves me with Common Chess Patterns. Yay! Common Chess Patterns is my own personal favourite course on Chessable. It was designed to be trained by me and use me for my own training purposes, but lots of friends said I should produce it and publish it, so that's what I did. So the purpose behind Common Chess Patterns is to isolate those individual tactics, right, free from all the clutter of the chessboard, and then sort of train them again with the chessboard in the normal positions in the in situ. So I did this, and when I was first making this course for myself, I found that these patterns were just jumping out, and it was absolutely working in games, in blitz games. It was incredible. I was creating a position, from one of my own games, or something like that, or for something that I found by looking at other people's games, and immediately within the same day, I was coming across the same pattern. So I was really excited by this. And it's something that I trained myself when I was training chess properly, when I was actually, competing over the board and stuff like that. I used it as, at the end, in my sole source of sort of training tactics, really. So yeah, you get tons and tons of stuff in this course. It's something like 780 positions. You've got knight patterns, double attack patterns, pin patterns, double check, skewer patterns, x-ray patterns, decon deflection, remove the defender patterns, they pull it, then you go into the mate patterns, they pull it mates, advantageous mates, until mates, so on and so forth, all of these mate patterns. And then you get the test positions where, you've trained and you isolated and you put the work in, right? You haven't given up after like 16 variations, you put the work in and drilled over and over again. And then you do the test sections. So I'll show you an example in a minute. And you get all the test sections from the various positions. And then these little bonus Nightfall sections running at the end. So I am currently working on Common Chess Patterns 2, which is, it's slow going because it's big work. It's a lot of work alongside also writing my book 3 in the Lavin and Brown series. So let's just show you an example of the type of thing to expect. Let's click on Knight Patterns, for example. And I don't know, let's go pattern 4. So here we go, isolated knight pattern 4, and what you have to do is find the best move. So you can pause the videos if you want, in any of these. The best move in this position is just the knight fork taking advantage of the pin, right? Because this is an early pattern, right? So they build up and build up and get more complex. But let's have a look at another one, for example. This one, I love this one. This comes up all the time in games. Like, it's crazy. The fact that you've got the king pinned, right, and then you've got a knight fork just taking advantage of pin. Just comes up all the time. And this was the one, I think this actual position was the one where I knew this course was going to work because I was making the positions and they were coming up in games all the time. So that's the idea. You train these isolated patterns in isolation and then you do the test sections. So here's the test section from that particular pattern. You know, this is the normal board position with all the pieces put back in. And then immediately, because you've trained the isolated position, you know, the pattern should be jumping out straight away in the game, which just ends the game straight away. Nightfall pattern there. Brilliant stuff. So those are my top 5 Chessable courses. And I just want to again thank you for purchasing the course and the positive feedback you get from them. You know, it's really encouraging to do other stuff, and it's probably given me the confidence actually to some degree to go out there and write my own books, because I'm now writing the Murder and Mystery books, the Lavender and Brown, the York Mysteries, the Lavender and Brown, Crystal Howard Christmas Mysteries. I am working on the 3rd book in the series, which is Darker. These are crazy farcical comedies, you know, and that's my next sort of projects really. Hopefully can make those successful, though it's very difficult. Anyway, thank you, take care, goodbye.